That's good. All right, bam, we're live. Just like Sevon says, everybody else, welcome to the show today. Special episode because Jace Brooks got robbed at a competition, and we're going to go over it.
Wow,
Today
you're
we
just
have
coming out of the gate hot, man.
that's the point of the whole show. We have Mr. Tyler Watkins. He is founder, creator, co-owner. Is that right? Heat One app.
The Heat One app.
My wife just won $1,500 from the Heat One app for the.
Did she really?
Games. Yeah, through the Proven.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Pretty sick. Give her a shout out. She plays. During semifinals, we were playing a lot, and I would give her my 2 cents, and she's like, "No, I got this." But like, she went to semifinals on a team and was 4 spots from the CrossFit Games, so she's pretty versed in that and loves it. It's like
what's crazy is that was the top 10 league. So she had to set that before everything happened.
She did.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
That's cool, though.
She didn't like how James Sprague won, or not won, but he was high up there in the semifinals. Right. Yeah. She was like, come on, how's that guy going to be up there and competing?
That's cool.
If you guys aren't familiar, Heat One app, it's a great way to do basically sports betting on CrossFit athletes and CrossFit competitions. Are you guys going to be doing the Masters competition?
No. Basically after the games, we like kind of stepped way back, and we were like really considering that it was our first year as a business. The app didn't even exist before last games. We were able to get it off the ground before the last games. And so upon our 1-year anniversary, we were like, okay, like now we have some good data on what happens when you run a fantasy app in CrossFit. Now we want to think a little bit more strategically. So we're going to take a couple months off and consider what we're going to do.
Cool. Yeah, it'd be really fun. I think it's a space in the sport where people will make bets and everything else.
Yeah.
Have a good time with it. The Masters would be good. There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
A lot of opportunity there.
I like anything that gets the fans involved. So
yeah,
sports betting is awesome. It just adds an extra layer to the excitement.
Yeah, and you get super fandom because you got to learn about the sport, about the athletes, builds the whole thing. It's really cool. Mm-hmm. But Tyler also, he says he's modest about it. I'd just say he created it. He brought it to CrossFit. So a Z-score similar to decathlons. He brought in to CrossFit for scoring in competitions. And this has been a huge contingency in the space of, are the scoring system fair? How does it work? And it's confusing at times, not confusing at other times. And then depending on the depth of the field, they change the scoring system, like at the CrossFit Games, from the 100-point system to like when it goes 100 points, and it's like 98 points, 96 points. But then if you have 20 people, it's like 90, 95, whatever. And it creates these huge gaps and chasms. So,
or what they did with the run and sprint event, where they split it up into 2, and then they used that to create a point system that correlated over to the original point system, which was a wild mess.
Yeah. So they're doing the best they can. And like all systems have an issue. Tyler's covered that ad nauseum in tons of podcasts, 7 podcasts, Training Think Tank. You guys can check those out. But ultimately, there is an error when you're trying to find the fittest across broad times and mole domains. It's very hard to score it. Mm-hmm. And Tyler has made, in my opinion, a better system to score it, which is something that we should move to.
I agree, simply because it helps my point.
The complaint, though, is it's too hard to follow. I don't think that's the case, but
it is not hard to follow at all.
You know exactly. What's funny was at the games we did our live show on the barbell spin, and we were covering, and I don't remember actually. And like we're running the fantasy app at the same time. We're doing point spreads on bets, like we're doing, and I don't once remember thinking, what are the points per placement? You just take it. You're just like, okay, like if third gets 92 points, that's okay, fine. Like you don't care what the spread is. And so it's like when people are like, Tyler, this is too complicated. I'm like, you don't know what the points are anyway.
Yeah. No clue. Oh, they cut the field down to 30. What's the point system now? Because it changed. I don't know.
Yeah. No one cares.
Yeah.
I always appreciated the Z-score, which is now P-score, because it always helped me as well. Like, because I'm never like a guy who wins things, but I never got punished because I would always just be like in the mix. And so like I would end up right in the middle because I'm the average. I'm incredibly right in the middle.
Tyler, you want to give us a dumbed down version of what the P-score is and how it works. Like if you were to give a 2-minute pitch for
Yeah.
Also, why is it called P score and not Z score?
We'll go over a
We'll
little
go
bit
over
of the
that.
history,
Okay.
history of it. So essentially the problem I wanted to solve was, if you beat somebody in 4 seconds in Fran versus 12 seconds, if you come in first and they come in second, those are two very different things. And it shouldn't just be, you're saying 5 points could be equivalent to 4 seconds or 12 seconds. And that never seemed appropriate to me. And then especially like if you consider, a 245 Fran versus a 230 Fran versus a 215 Fran, those 15-second increments between each of those are very different 15 seconds. It's a lot more work, training, and expertise to get from 230 down to 215 as opposed to 245 down to 230. And so what I wanted to see essentially was I wanted to reward, if you were the best in the world at something, I wanted you to get those points, because you may be average at everything else and just knock a homer on this one, but you weren't getting rewarded because no one was even close to you. So like the classic example I use is Sam Dancer. He can out deadlift everybody by 100 points, but he was never rewarded for that because no one was in his, in the same universe as him on deadlift. And so why run the event if he can't even make up his points? So what my point systems did was sort of come up with a point system based on how the field did, and then give you a point spread based on that. So it's not linear, or well, it used to not be linear. It's more based on what everyone does. And so if you beat somebody by 1 second versus 12 seconds, those points are different. So in essence, it started with Z score. So Z score was the fun name that I gave it, but it did remind me of the old Z score. For people who don't know, Z score is based off standard deviation. That the old bell chart that everybody knows. If there are less people as you get away from the median, as opposed to close to the center. And that's how I always thought about it. Like the farther you are from a 500-pound deadlift, the more and more of a freak you are in CrossFit. And so it's like, I wanted to reward you because each pound that you get farther away from that is a harder pound to gain. Yes. And that goes for running, that goes for Metcons, it goes for everything. So it started with Z score. And then I think Harley was there for this when I argued. Basically, we went to Crash. We ran it at Crash, and I argued with what's her name? She used to be on Mayhem's team.
Alexis Johnson,
who's a PhD in math. We argued about it for essentially 3 days. And she kind of pushed on me that actually my scoring system pushed people towards the middle as opposed to help them escape. So if you actually did much, much better. Now it was getting the difference between everybody, a more accurate representation of that, but it was hurting those who were well far ahead. And so I sat with it for a long time. And then I developed what I call P score, which is basically a shortened version of performance-based scoring, P score. And what I did, so the way I calculate P score now is it's based off of one idea. That's, you have the best in the field. If you're at the CrossFit Games, the way I've sort of thought about it is the top 20 in that field. Let's throw this year out, but the top 20 in that field in any event, they're probably the best in the world. They're probably the top 20 in the world at that event. The bottom 20, you could probably fill in a bunch of athletes who might do better than that. But let's assume that the top 20 are the top 20 best athletes in the world at that workout. So I say, okay, first gets 100. We always know that. And then I said 50 points is worth the 20th place. What is the difference between that first place finish and that 20th place finish? That creates a line, points per second or points per rep or points per pound, between the middle place and the top place. Now it is linear, but it is based on your seconds or your reps or whatever.
Yeah.
Now it gets crazy, and we'll see this later where you get towards the bottom. Some people really get hurt in the bottom if they're not performing to par. But I think it it is built for the games. It was always built for the games because to me, the games is a scientific test, less so than a show. And we're moving away from that. But I always wanted to know the metrics of who was the fittest person on earth. And I wanted to get it right.
This brings it back. It brings it back to a scientific test. I think you're right. It's been a show for a really long time. I think early on, my wife and I were talking about this. Like, yeah, what the soundbite that people pull is Greg from like the 2009 games or 2008 games, where he talks about it being a test of training methodologies to find the fittest on earth, and they claim that right because we can show across broad times, mold domains, and test those things. And then if you watch athletes from like 2009 who can't kip toe to bar and they're doing them in singles, you're kind of like, and as we've evolved as athletes, you need something like this to keep it the way you're saying. Because I think as we've gone down the road now and people are so developed and so fit that the margins of how close they are to each other is so close. Whereas before, if you came up with kipping toe to bar or butterfly pull-ups, you're going to blow the athletes away and you're going to win. And I don't know if that is being carried over until you create a point system like this. Because right now it's still a show until they fix that point system issue, I think. And you can't claim the fittest on earth because they're just the best CrossFitters putting on a show, which is totally fine.
Right.
But once you start looking at these deviations, like, because you know that Sha'Carri Richardson is the fastest on earth female in her event, by the metrics. And there's no disputing that. Until you create those metrics that closely, you can't have an argument until you can, right? Because 100 points means what, Then like you're saying to the deadlift example, that Sam Dancer is the best deadlifter out of all the CrossFitters who claim to be the best CrossFitters and also very good at these other things. So it ties into the who's the best at broad times mold domains, and it shows that through a numeric value against the other competitors and goes back to their general like idea of how you find the fittest. Yeah. So it's hard to understand why they don't accept it, because I know CrossFit HQ are pushing back on a little bit.
I don't know how close it almost might not be the right word, but there was a courting process with Wodapalooza for a while. At their 10th anniversary, we talked about using it at Wodapalooza, and then like we've used it at Crash, but to use it on the top scale, essentially from like anybody who was commentating, they were like, the story's harder to tell. And I'm like, maybe, but only in a few circumstances. So
I think if you're not educated in athletes, like I think a coach would be better at commentating. Like someone like Adrian Conway would do a phenomenal job because he understands the differential between the athletes. And that's what we do all day, every day, is we look at athletes of like, where are you in this competitive landscape? And you want to go here. So we now need to create those values within, then you could use a P score and be like, you're this far away of the best, or the Wodapalooza qualifier that you want to qualify for, or whatever competition. And you can almost predict over time as a coach, if you get enough metrics from an athlete, how well they're going to do in a competition, especially if you have everybody else's metrics.
Yeah. Yeah. And like guys like Brent like Brent and I've talked about it before, like he knows about how fast everybody moves generally on everything before he goes into the event. So you can kind of predict like, okay, I need to be watching this guy because I know that we move at about the same speed. So I need to beat him. But there's one particular moment that makes it difficult to commentate, which is we get to the end of the weekend, we're at semifinals and we know that Brooke needs to beat so-and-so by 15 or they need to beat so-and-so, and that's 15 points, or they need 15 points on this person. So they need to have X people middle that position. Well, you can't do that with P-score. Yeah. Which is the whole point for me, because I just want to know what you're capable of. I don't give a shit about to me, I think the excitement is probably more, you get more excitement on the P-score side than you would on the other side, because
I agree. I think that the anticipation that would come from that, whether or not they can predict it, whether or not they're telling you exactly what you need to win or get what your desired outcome, it creates anticipation. It's like, well, they need to excel. They could just keep it vague and say they need to excel and this person needs to, fall off. And then it keeps it vague and then let the show tell the story.
Or like you can have the idea of like, I need to be 20% ahead of this person in the workout. Like that's kind of cool to me.
Yeah. And that's what we did at Crash. So going into the final event at Crash, I think it was like Sprague, Hatfield, and Colton going into the last event. And like we were trying to figure out, of course, like getting new data. So a new heat will provide new data, but we were using the data that had already come in to kind of say this athlete needs to beat this athlete by 15 seconds in order to get first. And that's way more cool to me because you can look at the clock. But we had never done that before. So it was great, like running that analysis live.
That's actually a really interesting point, because this is the problem we have. Well, part of the mindset stuff that I was going to talk about with Jace later on, though, is that in this me versus me in your system, it goes back to kind of a me versus me. Because if you know that you have to go 15 seconds faster than like your projected time that you were going to fitness at, you could run that as a coach, run it. Okay, we're going to spend time here, this transition here, this here. And you would do some real coaching and help them get pacing. And like from the sideline, be like, you're on pace. And they could win it 15 seconds faster what they need and get first. Versus like the final event for the men was really cool at the games this year. And you watch James go 3 bar muscle ups the whole time. And then all he had to do was come in ahead of Fikowski and hope that 4 to 6 other people came in between them and he would be crowned the fittest. And that happened. But you could still do that as long as you'd be like, oh, well, James needs to come in 20 seconds ahead of Fikowski.
It's actually like, so we go through this like every single CrossFit event, but during semifinals, they're like, okay, they have that announcement for like who won and stuff. And there's always this awkward pause because it's like, we all know who won. Like, even if it was close, like generally you can pay attention, and before they ever announce it, everybody in the crowd knows, or the athlete knows. Versus with or with like any of this performance-based scoring, there's no way they'd know. I actually had an idea of what you were talking, Todd. It would be cool, like at Crash, when we run the performance scoring, if we had like a TV in the warm-up area where you could see the current scores, and that would, if you're a smart coach, you can see what each second, how many points each second or pound or rep are worth, and be like, okay, I know the pace my athlete can hit, and then based on that, they might need to move like at this pace, and then you can come up with metrics like on the fly and be like, hey, I know we talked about you rowing at this pace, but you probably need to pull this. If you're a good coach, that would be absolutely cool to see.
I really love that. I love that idea because it relates it back to like weightlifting. So like running cars on a weightlifting table, like, oh, no, you need to lift 1 kilo heavier so that you're above these people, or we're going to adjust your weight up 1 kilo so that they have to lift sooner than they're ready for. And then so like really like there's this interaction with the coaching dynamic and weightlifting that is much more like chess and strategic than you would ever realize. And that would bring a sense of that to the CrossFit space.
Yep.
It'd
be cool too if you had cameras on that whole situation. Like you could never show it real time, but you could like in post, like if you had a camera in the athlete area and Todd's looking at the screen and he's like doing something on his phone. And he's like, okay, no, you need to go at this, like hit this. And, or he yells out to so-and-so, like tell them to move at this speed out on the floor. That'd be freaking dope.
Everyone
it would create a ton of excitement
just to
just
to figure out how fast to go.
I could make it so that, you know, I could have a little metric at the bottom where it's like 5 points per like 5 reps or something like that.
But you definitely have to be in, like, I'm very data driven with athletes. And I think like, like if a robot did this, how would they do it? Right. And if you're not that type of coach, you would struggle with something like this.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, that's the same. It would, I don't want to say like weed out coaches, but it would be something where like, you know, it's like the best football coaches know how to run plays. They know the playbook like by the back of their hand. Those coaches are the best coaches for that reason. So it just add another layer to coaching beyond like warm-ups and mental stuff and like giving a pat on the back. Like you start becoming really valuable in winning and losing, which is cool. I like that.
Some athletes don't want it either. They're like, I don't need, they go all by feel. And it's like, okay, like, and maybe that lasts in the future. Maybe it doesn't. We'll see.
I just was thinking of how wild East Coast semifinals would have been if you had this scoring. Like everybody was already pulling their hair out looking at the scoreboard because it was so close, but this would have made it even better.
All right. Well, let's take a look at how you got robbed. All right. So we'll look at the event was the Mountain West Fitness Championship, which is kind of cool. I didn't even know you were doing this.
It was just kind of something that got thrown in there. My grandpa lives in Boise, and I wanted an opportunity to go and hang out with him and show him what CrossFit is, so he didn't think it was just American Ninja Warrior crap.
Sick. Cool.
So I picked up this competition. There was a few people who were in the Arizona, what is it, that Desert City Classic qualifier that were on the leaderboard, and I was like,
licensed
it might be worth it because it seems like it's big enough. They had a decent payout, so I was like, let's head over there and try and
give it a shot.
Numbers.
Yeah. Well, here's the problem. Here's where how do I scroll over on this bad boy? Oh, there it is. Okay. Jace got second place, and the first 3 events, he got his placing, but then he has first place in the final 4 events. And that's kind of what we want to talk about. Cause that, you would think if you're like, okay, who is the fittest in this? Cause that when you go to a competition, that's whether it's the CrossFit Games or whatever, that's what I think you're trying to do. You're trying to see who's the most prepared, who's got the mental game, who can execute on workouts, and who is the fittest. And he wins 4 of the final events and takes second place. And so that's what we're going to talk about. And they're going to illuminate. Where do we want to start?
Bye, Harley.
Oh, see you later, dude.
Is that his signal? I'm leaving.
I'm out. Balloons.
Yeah, I don't know if we want to go through each event or we just want to talk about what happened overall. It was interesting because I knew nothing about the competition as far as what the events were. You guys just reached out and I was like, yeah. And so I was scoring it and learning what the events were at the same time.
Yeah.
So this first event, you can go ahead.
All right. So the first event, we got a barbell complex, 6 minutes to find a 1 rep max, snatch, hang snatch, snatch. And Jace, tell us what you did.
I fucked up.
Well, you did hit 225, and then so paint the picture. You're out there. Was 225 the first go?
No, 225 was not the opening weight.
Okay.
You only have time for about 2 or 3 lifts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I planned for 3 lifts. I wanted a safe lift, which was my 205. Then I hit the 225, which is like a good solid number.
270.
What a help.
245 was the next number, and that's something that I hit for a triple hang snatch before, or at least close to that number. So I was like, I should be able to get this. It's a little bit of an overreach. I haven't been training snatch a whole bunch or working on it, but I was like, I think I can pull this out in competition, and very, very close, but no dice. So I kind of powered the last reps, and I should have sank down into my squat, but it was execution error. And that caused me to drop the weight and fail. So I ended up getting 225.
Yeah, 245 would have got you second place, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So
the top guy only hit 255, and I know I say only 255. What I noticed looking through this competition scoring wise is, and tell me if I'm wrong, but it seems like there was a broad amount of talent at this. You had people who probably weren't that great. That were there, probably maybe shouldn't have been at the comp, and then some people who were semifinal hopefuls.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say that anybody shouldn't have been at the comp because
this guy who did 145 should not have been there. Sorry, dude. I won't say your name, but sorry.
But maybe he should have gone down to the intermediate.
Yeah, definitely.
Division.
So the way that
there was broad
talent.
Yeah.
The way the scoring worked on this was everything looks like it was worth 3 points.
Yeah, and there were some athletes who didn't show, so I think they accounted for 40 athletes being there, and only 36 of them showed.
Right. So that's an issue with scoring at the moment. Is it's not it doesn't slide as people fall in and out. It's just if you stay, you'll get points because you didn't drop out and somebody else did. Even though you can get last. So so when I went through P score, basically first place gets 100, and then I do best minus median.
That is so cool. You have the same exact thing that I made independently, just trying to figure out how this all works. So it's that's kind of interesting.
If you scroll down to the bottom there, you'll see some figures pop up. So I have the best, which is 255 for that. And then the median was 205. And then we have points per base. So points per pound in this in a sense. So you divide all that out, and it's 1 point per pound on this workout, which is cool.
This is perfect.
So let's scroll. It comes out to where essentially you, Jace, you got 83 points. You tied with several other guys.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, you actually would have lost points. You would have got 70. So the gap between you and Peter,
Mr. Peter,
closes here because in the regular version he would have gotten 77 points, and in mine he would have got 65. So you guys got a little closer, and that makes sense because you only snatched 5 more pounds than he did.
Yeah.
So I mean, so cool. Like you guys are close in fitness there. You're only 5 more pounds or 5 more points ahead of him based on your actual performance.
Yes.
I'm assuming you're okay with that.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense. Like, you only did 5 more pounds. You only get a little bit more reward on the leaderboard for that.
Yeah.
Right. Cool. I'm good to go to the next one.
Yeah, I always hate lifting. I'm glad it was a complex. I always hate lifting events though. Like absolutely.
I think personally, unless you're at the games, there should not be like 1 rep maxes. It should be some sort of complex like this or 5 reps or something like that.
Yeah. This is a lot better. I think it's hard because like even at these types of comps where there's a mixture of people, you're only as strong as you're strong, right? And someone could come in, and in this situation with like Jace, because the other people do matter in the standard point system. So if someone comes in and they're not very fit, but then they hit like a 275, they're going to pull points away from the other athletes, and that's going to hurt them over the course of the weekend because of the outliers, So it's tough in that sense. I don't really like
Chase Ingrams likes to say everybody's got their party trick.
Yeah.
Before you go back to the comments on that other one, I just want to point something out.
Oh, the comments. Come on.
Who's been practicing those drag rope double unders under fatigue? Just hang on to that for a second.
Yeah.
How do I go to workout number 2? I thought it was going to all be on that slide.
Comp corner.
Oh yeah, we could do that. That's better.
There's an easier.
Yeah. Let's do that.
Workouts over there at the right.
Go.
I sent them in the group chat too as screenshots.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's that too.
All right, workout number 2, life alert. All right,
that was a fun one. I like that one.
2K Echo Bike, 25 burpee box jump overs, 25 alternating toes to bar. I really like that. 25 burpee to target, 25 toes to bar, and 25 box jump overs.
So single-legged toes to bar on those first sets of toes to bar.
Yeah, it's cool. Alternating.
Yeah.
I like it.
I mean, I think the rep scheme should have been like double on everything on this workout, but that's okay.
That's okay. All right. So Jace, on this workout, you got 5th.
Yep.
In the general leaderboard. But so 8:29 was your time, and then what was first? Here we go. 8:10. So 19 seconds. See what that does in Z score.
So this is where it gets a little bit more fun. As you can see, I have time here, which is everybody understands that. But then I also had to include reps. You can see that some people time capped. So anybody who has 12 time capped. So there's a lot of talk in scoring of like, okay, well, what if somebody time caps? What do? Do you give them seconds per each rep?
We had this exact problem last night.
Yes.
And I had no idea how to figure it out. So I just left the time cap number and said it'll probably be close enough for what I'm trying to do. I was like, it's like.
So here's how you solve this
issue.
Figuring
that out.
You get capped in a workout, you should get a 0.
Well, we'll see how it plays out for these folks. Here's how you solve that issue.
It'd be pretty close.
Right. The way you solve that is you take the time. So you find the seconds. What I do is I find the seconds that they competed in this event. So whatever 12 times 60 is not that number. Sorry, I'm bad at head math. 720 seconds, right? That's how many seconds they had in that. But this person who got this last spot right here, 39 reps. So what I do is I divide 720 by 39 reps. That's essentially your work number, how much work you did. And as we know, like from CrossFit, that's all that matters is how much work you did in the event. So that's what the number you see right here is that seconds per rep, 18.46 seconds per rep. Whereas yours, Jace, you were doing 3.39 seconds per rep. Which
I see how you did that now. That makes a lot of sense. That's really clever. I like it.
That way you don't have to imagine what they could have done that they didn't do. No, you're only looking at what they did.
Yeah. I love that though, because as a coach, I look at stuff like this. Like Tyler's done a bunch of these for a lot of different events, and I'll pull it, and then I'll look at the workout with the seconds per rep, and it's like, oh, okay, because now you can take an athlete and start evaluating like all these different
how fast they need to move,
and it's so fun, and that's how people know. Like I'm like, yeah, you're just not fit enough. Like, and they get mad. It's like, well, how do you know? I'm like, I just know.
Essentially, everything in CrossFit boils down to your cycle rate or your seconds per rep. And so it gets a little weird. Like, how do you count the 2K bike and all that stuff? Like, those are higher level questions. But like,
signed into our YouTube. This guy did not just say he's bad at head math.
I'm so bad at head math. So I have Excel. I don't have to do that. So in this, you did get fifth. Which was worth 89 points. But in this model, you would have gotten 92.6 points. You were 19 seconds behind the leader. And so I feel like that's much better. That's a much better range. Yeah, it's only 3 points, 3.5 points, but it makes sense.
3.5 points puts him at the 622 points. Like if you just gave him those points and the way that they do their point system, the total at the end of the weekend, he goes from 622 to 625.5, and Peter got 626,
Right. So you're catching back up here.
Yeah. I mean, I know that's not how it works. Like that's
right. No, I understand.
But
yeah.
Another interesting thing to point out is like this is early in the competition, and they just had lane assignments at this point, and they weren't rearranging based on placement. So I had no idea what the top guys had done by this point for time or where they were in relationship to me on the event floor, which I think is interesting. So one person was a few seconds ahead of me in my heat, and I thought that'd be good enough spot for me on the leaderboard when I got to it, but it ended up being a little bit lower than I thought it was.
Yeah. Actually, Todd, can you go back?
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to bring up something real quick. So you were talking about if you got time capped, you should get 0 points. So I've reshuffled this based on how many points you got based on P score. So as you can see here, if you scroll towards the bottom, everybody there got time capped. And you can see here, there's a negative number. Now we talked about this during Crash last year. We set it to 0. So basically if you went negative, you just got 0 points. Now people got mad because they were like, well, I got more work done than he did. And I'm like, yeah, but you're fighting for the bottom here. Now there's talk about like how
there's honor and glory in the bottom. Okay.
Right.
He says, listen to me, you suck.
But you can see like you go like this guy who got 11 reps of the whole 150, he got negative 3,500 points. Now, is that egregious? Probably. But like you're not even in the same league as everybody else.
Yeah.
Like on this workout. And then there comes to talk about like sandbagging too. Like if like, no, dude, like everybody else is doing the work. Like
if you don't get negative points, you're not going to sandbag because you're in trouble.
Well, I mean, the punishment happens fast on those negative points.
Yeah.
Yes. Don't suck.
Yeah. Well, it's good too to like help. We made the comment about like, oh, some people should not have been at this competition. As a development tool for athletes, this could be something great too, right? We talk about development in the sport. We want people to get better. And I think the biggest thing that athletes struggle with is like, where am I in the sport? How good am I getting? And this is something that could show you like, hey, this is not a negative thing. It's just like you were negative points in this workout. So your metabolic conditioning, or it's your toes to bar gymnastics or whatever it is, let's evaluate this workout because you were negative. How do we get you into the positive sense? How do we move you up competitively? And that's something that they try to say with the open and like test your fitness and sign up for the open, even though the workouts are different every year. Makes no sense. But you can't use it as a tool to evaluate your fitness and your growth potential unless you're doing something like this.
Right.
And that's why I like this, because you could do this with the open and everything else and go, yeah, that's a glaring hole. You would have been negative in the field. We need to fix that. And then build training programs, that are going to subsequently precede that event to fill that gap.
Well, that's sort of like how this ended up coming to be, was that I used to go through a really detailed process every year where I would go through the open. I would do it throughout points of the year, like prepping for the open. I would do open workouts, and I would do them. I would go back and watch my video and time everything. And then I would go watch somebody like Scott Panchik. And I'd be like, okay, his seconds per rep on toes to bar is this. And then he takes an X break, and then he has
I do all of that as a coach. Not even for myself. I watch my athletes.
Right. And then so it's like, okay, your row is way off pace. Like if you pulled this, would your pace on this toes to bar suffer that much? Probably not. Versus like, I know I'm maxed out on this movement. Where can I get it somewhere else? But you have something to measure too, whereas before you don't really. And so that's sort of where this whole thing started coming into mind for me.
Yeah. And it's great because people will say, I got to do this under fatigue, like toes to bar under fatigue. It's like, is it the toe to bar? Or is it the row pace that you can't sustain? So should we be doing rowing intervals, or should we be doing rowing into toes to bar? I don't think it's the toes to bar. It's you're trying to pull too hard on the rowing, and you need to like focus on the rowing. The toes to bar will be there when you need them, as long as you get more fit and you fix that problem. So that this tangibly gives me something where it's like, it's very, very objective. Like, no, this is it. It's where we're at. Rowing. Someone just says rowing. It's probably always the rowing.
Yeah.
All right.
Next workout is interesting.
Yeah.
I wish they just did acid bath.
I would have blown that out of the water.
That's such a good workout just on its own. But this is good. So acid bath is a famous workout from the Dubai Fitness Championship. It's been in documentaries. Matt Frazier, they gave out like what, 30K, whoever wins this workout or something like that. Oh yeah,
they gave a bonus out.
Yeah, they gave a bonus whoever wins. And the Matt Frazier line is like, someone's about to black out because like he wants to win the money. If you watch any of these documentaries. All right, so 500-meter ski, 500-meter row, 1,000-meter bike erg. That in itself is phenomenal. Should have just left it there, but hey, whatever. We're going to do 100 drag ropes, and we're going to go in reverse. 1,000-meter bike, 500-meter row, 500-meter ski for time. Acid bath number 1 plus total time. So it's 2 scores, which I do like. They try to goat you into sending it. But if you've ever done this as a test as an athlete, you're not sending that when you got to do 100 drag rope double unders.
No.
And go into the next one. But
it's like you almost shouldn't even call it acid bath at that point, because you can't do it the way acid bath is intended to do.
Right. You're not going to die.
Just call it warm bath.
Warm bath.
Warm bath.
Russian bathhouse workout.
Yeah.
All right. So let's see. You got, let's go leaderboard.
Jace, how did you feel during this?
The whole thing, or
just what was the experience during this workout?
This was like a really relaxed workout. I mean, I was watching the heats go before me, and all that I cared about was the end finish time. On the back half, I was faster.
I mean, it makes sense because you won the total time.
Yeah. On the back half, I was faster than the front half.
Yeah, 18th. But still, 540 is moving pretty good in acid bath.
I was very relaxed through that. Like, I was nasal breathing.
I wish I could pull up the Dubai times now that
a lot of the bikes and row on the first half, and then on the back half, I sped it up a little bit, but I was so far ahead of everybody after going unbroken on those drag rope double unders that I just went slow.
Nice. Yeah, I got first.
Yeah.
First in the second half. All right, let's see it on the leaderboard. What do you got on this, Tyler?
I'm let me see.
Oh, there you go.
Doing some math real quick. We all know I'm gonna take a second. Sorry.
Snatch. There we go. All right. Yeah, they separate as 1 and 2. Yep. Here we go. It's acid bath. Jace, 50 points on,
which is hilarious, right?
And they got the first place. The second portion, total time.
Yeah. Let's see here.
How are the drag ropes? Were those like inconsequential?
For me, everybody else died.
You're a good jumper though, so that helps.
I'm not very good with the rope, which is kind of strange to me. Usually, double unders are kind of a kryptonite of mine. But I think with the extra weight of the drag rope,
helped you out.
Yeah, because I already tend to over whip the rope.
You lasted longer than everybody else because you already do that.
Yeah, I already do that, and it's just natural to me. So it was like these almost feel easier than regular double unders. So
that's I've always felt that too. I'm a little bit shoulder heavy on my double unders, and then so when I switch to drag, I actually make a distance on the like anybody who would normally be ahead of me.
Yeah,
because you're just like you've done so much work doing that because you suck. Like you're not efficient. Yeah. So in this workout, it ended up being every second or every 6.18 seconds was worth a point. And you can see, so Jace in the normal situation would have gotten 50. He happened to have been 18th, which in this model was median. He got 50 points there. He was, let's see, the winning time was 5:09. You being 31 seconds slower than that. That makes sense. Did you feel about midway in the pack like your efforts worth about 50% of the top guy in that?
Yeah, I knew I was finishing right middle of the pack with the first portion of acid bath, but that was planned.
And then in the
second plan though.
I mean, I don't know, like 100 points is 100 points. In the second one, so I had to break it up in the second part of that.
Dude, real quick, I got it. I pulled it up. I found it.
Yeah.
This is the leaderboard for acid bath. Matt Frazier.
Original?
Yeah. 4:57. 5:02, 5 minutes, 5:05, 5:11. So like being 5:40, knowing these
that's
guys
crazy
to work.
Yeah.
Man, you a stud. All these people are kind of a stud when you look at the.
I feel like I could get close to those, but I really don't know. That's just a guess.
Probably could just by itself. I mean, it dampens your mindset. You're like, oh shit, I got to do 100 of these, and then I got to do it in reverse. So like, you're not going to go as fast.
No.
Yeah, you look at these times. Like a lot of these people could shave 20 seconds off that time.
Except for those people at the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of those people.
That was negative.
Nobody went negative. Everybody, and that's what's great is everybody finished that one. But then like on the second, I guess in the second part, some people didn't finish. So again, we had to pull out the reps and then create like a cadence seconds per rep. So every 0.8 seconds was worth a point or 0.18 seconds. So you ended up winning.
0.18 seconds was worth a point.
Let's see here. So this guy. That's incorrect. 0.18 is wrong.
Oh.
So this is where it's great because this guy in second, Peter, this is where he lost, I think, is that in this one, you were a little bit behind him, 27 points, but then you made up a full 20 points on him right here. So in the original, it was 100 and he got 97. Here you made 100 versus the 80 he would have made in that event. So it makes sense. I mean, like he's about half a minute behind you.
Yeah. Fair is fair. You are the fittest.
I also pace that way different than everybody else. Everyone bought into that. Let's do acid bath as fast as we can. So like,
and you're like, why?
People were like getting off that bike and they'd go and they'd get one rep on the double under rope. And then they'd stop, and then they'd get 3 reps, and they'd stop.
That's pretty typical, like with like crossover dubs or like triple unders too, or like other heavier ropes and stuff.
Which is crazy that you were able to keep middle of the pack, and then just move into the next one being fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was no rest into the double unders, straight in, unbroken, and then right back to the bike.
Yeah,
I passed so many people. It was funny.
Yeah, so that's it. Like that's where he then won.
Essentially. Well, I mean, like he starts to really. Was it a 2-day? I'm guessing. Yeah, it had to have been a 2-day comp.
I do want to see where he started to pull away from it though. So
that's where. And so from here on out, Jay starts to pull away.
I'll run through the workouts real quick.
I was so mad when I looked at the leaderboard that night because I just come off an event win. I was so happy. I looked at the leaderboard and I went down on the leaderboard and I was like, "What?"
We'll go through 4 or 5. and 6. And then we'll go to the spreadsheet. That way the viewers know. So 2159 dumbbell bench press, heavy dumbbell goblet squats, and then heavy dumbbell snatch. 70 pounds is heavy.
This is a weird workout.
It's similar. It's like Linda. They just took Linda and was like, all right, how do we do this?
I didn't mind
That's
it.
different. And then you got
I'm biased.
Workout number 5, back to the bar. Interval 3, 3, 3, 3. 500 meter row, max clean and jerk, weight 1, 450, 400. You talk about weird workouts. Should have just left it at 500 meter row every time.
I
1 minute
thought
rest. Yeah. And then 135, 165, 185. So the weights could have been also heavier too to create more separation. But it's still a good workout. And then the last one, the chipper down back style, 100-foot sandbag, 10 bar muscle ups, 50-foot handstand walk, 8 bar muscle ups, 200 sandbag, 6, 204, 50-foot handstand walk, 2 bar.
Also a very weird workout. It must have felt like an eternity.
No, it wasn't too long. And that workout as a finale was so much fun. Like everybody was battling for position.
What was the flow like? So you do the 100-foot, like, yeah.
Is it? You would start at the rig, and you'd pick up your sandbag, march out 25 feet and back. That would make 50. So then you do that again for 100, and you'd be right onto your bar muscle ups. And then everything is done in either 50 or 100. So you always end at the pull up.
Got it. Okay.
So like there was like this really cool like race effect visually as people were getting close, like in scores and finishing in similar times.
I know what Tyler's talking about because like even the workout at Metcon Rush that Harley did with the shuttle runs and like the sandbag carry and the handstands and the rope climbs, like watching that workout, I was like, oh my God, this is like forever. It's the time wasn't forever, but it was because they're moving the floor so many times. You're just like, Jesus, when are they going to be done?
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, like on these next 3 workouts or three workouts, like Jace, the separation between Peter was made on pump sesh. Peter fell back. He would have had 89 points versus Jace getting 100 on all these. Peter got 83 points. And then like you can see like over second, Jace got 4 points as opposed to 3 points. Same thing on back to the bar, like 4 points over Peter. And then same thing on inverted. It was even more narrow. So in the original, he gets 97 points versus Jace's 100, and then 99.3 points. So he's 3 seconds behind you.
He was on you.
Yeah. That's why I said it was really fun getting to watch it because it was side by side.
What I kind of see looking at this is that a lot of people like kind of just they chose their battles and were like, yeah, if I suck at that, I'm not going to try. So like you had these, if you look at the overall, you have a couple crazy situations that I want to talk through. So this Jamison Jones guy, it's crazy because like I'm highlighting the whole row right here, but you only see that. So right here, Jamison Jones, you can see that in this situation, he has negative 7,225 points, right? Which drops him down to 40th. Well, if we look at why, it looks on pump sesh, he got 2 total reps on pump sesh. And I don't know if you were there and like saw this guy or saw what happened. Like, did he get hurt? Like what happened here? But like my thought on this, do what?
Can you just not like do the dumbbell bench press?
Right. That's what I was wondering. Like, did he just absolutely couldn't do 70s?
Probably.
So a question that I have is in this sort of scenario where somebody only does 2 reps, how much does that like skew the scoring system? And do you have to then like remove that score essentially to fix it?
No.
Now remember, we're only considering the top 20 essentially.
Got it.
Because I'm thinking about the best anytime. And that's why I say like this was built for the games is like I'm concerned with who the fittest on earth is and then like staggering that out. And so to me, below 20th, you can kind of fit in a bunch of different people on who that might be. So the top 20 to me is the most important. And if you're getting a bottom 20th place, like bottom 20 finish, I care less and less the farther you drop down that list.
Well, yeah, because you're now, by the definition, you're not the fittest across broad domains. Like, it has to be
right.
equal.
And that's what's not fair is like Jameson didn't even do this workout.
And he got 9th in their ranking system.
He got 9th in the overall. And so, okay, like say we cap it at 0, say you get a little bit of that. You had another situation where, let me see, the guys in 12th and 13th, Matthew, Coda, and Carter Peterson, they essentially had the same thing where,
which workout?
You know,
the same
Born Primitive or Pump Sesh, they basically didn't do that workout. They did the workout, but it looks to me like they actually tried because they had 20 and 19 reps, right?
There was a lot of guys who just couldn't push the weight,
which is crazy to me because it's 70 pounds.
I'm thinking about that work. I'm like, oh damn, I should have been at this comp. I'd have smashed you.
Right. Yeah. I saw that and was like, dude, this is great.
I was the only person to go unbroken on the whole thing.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
And
You're
so they obviously tried, but they were not in the same league as these guys who are essentially in the top 7. So you can see like overall the top 7 guys are in the top 7. The top is still the top. Now the difference is that you took first, and then there's one more switch up. Nick takes 3rd, and then this guy named Gage takes 5th. But so you can see like it's appropriate for the top. It just measures it more accurately. But like some of this stuff, like I bet some guys behind Jameson were like, you didn't even freaking do that one workout. And same thing with where are they? Matthew and Carter. It's like, well, you can't even bench. Like how can you win this? Yeah, how can you not horizontal press and win this and get this high in the competition? Whereas like Eric would have jumped to 11th had those guys not been there. So anyway,
but that happens a lot in competitions. This is the classic now. What's classic? Sydney Wells. Getting to the CrossFit Games and did one of the complex for the ring muscle up thing that year,
right?
And beat her sister. It's like, okay, well.
And one other thing that I like about the scoring system is, like I guess that'd be the next workout. But in this workout too, like I knew I was ahead and I was leading the pack, so I was like, I don't need to.
I'll pull up a little.
I knew I didn't need to go any faster because I was able to watch the field. So like, if I knew that I was going to receive more points for going a little bit faster, I would have. But because I knew that it was going to be the same point deviation system,
why?
Why? There's no reward for it. I'm not going to blow myself up extra on these squats just because of clout.
Here's absolutely do that. Clout is number 1.
Here's where this gets kind of crazy. The level of thinking about this gets nuts. Is because say that's a swimming event, right? In CrossFit, we're not very good swimmers. We don't train it very often. We don't have to. So say you were going to get first, you were like 30 seconds ahead of everybody and you pulled up and you were just relaxing, but you stayed 30 seconds ahead. We now, if you're at the top of the games, we now don't know what we have to train to hit high level paces.
Yeah.
Right. Because you're not doing it. So nobody really trains it that hard versus let's shift and do this. Yona Koski is going to swim as hard as he can. Then all the people who we know, like they're going to see him get 20 points on everybody because he trains swimming and he knows how to swim. And then all the other guys who are kind of good at swimming can be like, oh, I can get there. I just need to train it harder. They're going to push up to his level. That gap will then shrink. Yona will start to train harder on swimming as well as harder on everything else. We now know how fast you can swim and be fit at everything else. We're holding back, to me, I think we're holding back what we know humans are capable of because of the scoring system.
Yeah, I was thinking that exact same thing when I was trying to figure out how this whole thing worked. I was like, this is going to push the upper edge of what people are capable of. And people like Tia Toomey are going to win for massive point gains because she's not going to be held back.
Yeah.
And I think she deserves to. I mean, by the definition of CrossFit, like someone like that, she's good at constant varied functional fitness across broad times, multiple domains. Like she has no hole. And they're upholding that standard. And that's why there's no conversation of did she win the CrossFit Games, because she's done so many tests, and you could argue that. but it's something like this, the system would show that definitively. Have you ran this with, I know it's an incomplete test, but have you ran this with James?
Yeah, I have. Let me
see the fittest.
Yeah.
This is so cool.
No, he's not.
Oh, dang.
Well, and so it's like under the guys that we understand this is not totally a fair test. Yeah, he was not the fittest. He lost. Dallin won the games.
Nice.
If you score it with P-score.
He deserves it.
I'm a big
and he only won it by 9 points. So even still, it was really
James
close.
was second, though?
St. James was second.
Who was third? Hopper?
Third goes to Brent.
Damn it.
Hopper got fourth, period.
All right.
So, I mean, like.
Wait, what was the podium finish again? Can you say that all at once?
It was in P-score or regular?
Your P-score, yeah. P-score
was Dallin, Sprague, and Brent.
Okay.
Yeah. So
not that much difference, but like a slight difference. And those are accounting for those seconds, those inches that you get on each, Dallin was just fitter by just a little bit.
Right. And that's what's crazy is I think everyone needs to concede to the fact that like at this level, other than limitations, and I've been talking to athletes about this a ton, every movement is almost valued the same in mixed modal work at this level, at this point.
Yes.
Obviously you like, oh, it's not in a CrossFit class. Yeah. Okay. At the tippity top, a toes to bar and a chest to bar are the same to them. As far as like energy utilization substrate, they're just trying to go hard and they're going to hold on unbroken. Like that's why you watch all these people do things unbroken now at this point. It's like it's unbroken or die, and it's who can move fast enough at that rate of travel
between each. Yeah.
Yeah. And nothing's different. A squat clean at 135 and a thruster at 95 are like the same thing to them. It's managed by the reps and, the combinations and those types of things of how they're able to continue, and there's no bottlenecks, but they've created superhumans that have no bottleneck no matter the combination. So then we go back to like, I argue if you have somebody who's not really like aerobically fit or let's just go aerobically fit or high end aerobic power, you put them on an echo bike for the whole year, they'll come back and be fitter as long as they don't lose any of their strength or their skill, and they'll be way fitter. And all they had to do was echo bike all year.
That's interesting. I never really thought about that.
Because like, think about it, it's a global movement pattern, and you just give them broad times and modal domains, broad times of domains, and just be like, okay, 3-minute sprints. Let's get you really good at this. Let's push out your calories. Let's push out your wattage. Let's give you 12-minute works. Let's push out the calories. Let's push out the wattage, because they're moving their body and their bioenergetics. And then you are making the assumption that they can still snatch 275. They can still clean and jerk.
Yeah, you still need to do the other work, but it's almost maintenance at this point. Like you're just pushing the fitness with the bike.
Yeah, and the fitness will carry over into all of these other movements, because all it is your body moving glycogen, oxygen, and ATP around.
Yeah, that's cool.
But you have to have that athlete that can do all the other shit, right?
Right.
Limiter models, I love it.
Yeah, and this proves it. To what we're trying to do, and then we try to prove it with the athletes, but like, there's so many variables, but this helps.
Yeah. So I mean, like, I've gotten off I was hard on the press trying to push for about a year of trying to get this implemented. I don't think it changes the show at all. Like, as far as like the excitement, people being like, oh, I don't understand. It's like, you don't understand now. I think it actually makes more exciting because, like you said, like Jace, as opposed to pulling up, you would have bared down to try to get more points on something that you might not get points on later on down the road. So we're going to see more exciting finishes on every single event. I'm hard pressed when I think about like Dallin and James and all that this past week, or that games week. Like, were there any workouts where those guys pulled up? Like, I don't remember anywhere. Like, the only one's like Ricky on the run.
Mm-hmm.
He smashed
but like
that.
Besides everything else, it's like everybody was like right there.
Yeah. That was going to be hard to evaluate. But I think if you went back and looked at, it's tough because James was in the West versus the East with Hopper and Dallin and Krennikov. Like, if you look at that performance, it's like, okay, they are the fittest in the world.
Yeah.
You just had to get them all in the same room, give them the test, have the motivation, the vigor, not have the consequences that happen, and like see what goes down,
Right.
But I would argue, it's a toss up. You got Adler, Dallin, I would even say James in the top 10, man. Like,
I don't think James is outside of the top 5.
Okay, yeah. All right, cool.
Yeah, I still think like he holds up. Like we needed to see a little bit more weight, and we needed, we needed to see a couple of different things, but I think he still holds up.
Yeah, I mean,
like, you don't fall from
Amanda 45, but like him and Brent both would have quote unquote struggled, but they're still fit.
They're not going to get below 20th.
Yeah, yeah. It's
That's
like the fall guys. It doesn't matter. Come on.
It's not like your scoring system is that much different at the end, but I think it's just that much more accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's like, if we're here to find the fittest on earth, this is actually one of the circumstances where there's only a couple circumstances where the fittest was not actually crowned, depending and you have to say it with the context of like these athletes would have pushed a little differently had they known, and all that. But like all else being equal, like there's only been a few circumstances where the athletes that won the games haven't been crowned.
Based on your scoring, correct?
Based on, my scoring system.
Yes.
And this benefits the athletes more than it does, the audience and everything else, because it shows them clearly like, no, this was fair, through the competition, and it's showing that fairness, so then they can feel much better about it.
Well, the thing there's great stories from Crash where the only time that I've helped administer run it, because there's been Crash and then the Big Orange Throwdown in Knoxville, and then competition in South Africa used it as well. But Crash has given me a ton of great stories about what athletes actually feel when they use this scoring system. And Harley was really good about that. He'd be like, or TJ James. I don't know if you guys know him, but he's like, he's a pretty good competitor. He's like semifinals level, but he just sucks at some stuff. And he ate shit on one of the workouts, wasn't even within the guy's universe, on the rest of the field's universe. And he was like, yeah, I got 0 points on that. I was like, how do you feel about that? He goes, no, that makes sense. I sucked at that. And Harley would say the same thing. He was like, guys, I'm not with the group on that one. It makes sense that I got 20 points.
Yeah.
So, but then he would also say it felt good knowing that I was right in the middle, but I got 55 as opposed to 45 because of the way that the scoring system works. So.
Yeah. How do you feel now, Jace? Looking at that and knowing you got second, as an athlete.
I was really frustrated at first. But I knew what my fitness level was, and I was I knew how I executed, and I was just because the scoreboard doesn't necessarily reflect that doesn't mean that I necessarily did a bad job. Honestly, creating my own spreadsheet with my wife, that was kind of a therapeutic thing for me, because I was looking at it, I was okay, I'm not crazy, I did a really good job. I just didn't get rewarded on it based on the system that was there, and the guy played a better game than me of CrossFit, but he's not a better athlete than me in CrossFit.
It's also tough when there's not athletes, there's not a bunch of athletes that are in your sort of training cohort. Yeah. If there's a bunch of guys that are getting ready to go to semifinals, and then everybody else is kind of middle of the road, top 1,000 in the quarterfinals, that it's just not the same game. And so you can't make separation on a guy when no one else is able to fit between you. Mm-hmm. And that's what sucks. There's a lot of talk about that. You'll hear athletes say especially back in the Matt Frazier days, it takes the whole group to be able to beat Matt Frazier. And it's that's bullshit.
Yeah.
You need the entire field. It's if you're better, you should be able to beat him.
Yeah. Well, that's the hardest as a coach. The thing that I'm battling the most with athletes all the time is the me versus me, or my best me argument. It's it's not, because the point system. It's you against everybody else, and who can slide in those slots.
It's really funny that you guys say that, because I was going up to athletes that I knew were close, and I was like, hey, I need you to watch for Peter out on the floor. Please beat him.
Right. I don't care what you do. Just please beat Peter.
Beat this guy, please. I need it.
Yeah. It's not going to even affect you. I just need the points.
I was beat him. I'll beat you. Don't worry about it.
100%. It would totally clean up the local comps with the system. It would clean it up a lot, and help people understand where they're at. That's my biggest gripe. I think athletes who are not into the sport as much, or coaches going to these local comps, they're just having a good time, but then you try to explain to them where they're at in the space, and there's a lot of pushback, because like, well, that's just your opinion as a coach. It's like, no, they're like, this is math. Like it's not my opinion. I'm just telling you, like, this is where you fall. This is what you got to work on. So
I think in CrossFit, oftentimes, like, we think that we're reinventing the wheel and doing something that's never been done before, when in reality it has. And it's like, I think Taylor has a great point. Taylor, right?
Tyler.
He's
saying
Taylor self-fault guy.
No, it's okay. Like I was literally on the phone with Sevon last night, and he called me Taylor, and I was like, "Come on, man, we've been friends for like 4 years."
I met you about an hour ago, so
yeah, I'll give you that one.
So Tyler has a great point. Like, they use this in the decathlon, and like it's been a scoring system that's been around for a long time. He didn't have to reinvent the wheel; he just had to apply it to CrossFit, and I think that's a really beautiful thing that. He's not trying to do something new or fancy. It's just the same old in a just slightly different way.
Yeah. Well, Tyler, thanks for your time.
Thank
if you guys haven't already, check out the He One app. Check him out on Barbell Spin. He's you're a regular, right? You're allowed to be on that show.
Yeah, we're
not getting kicked off.
No, it's like, yeah, I used to think like all the time, like I'm not. It's Spin's thing, but I used to think all the time, like, oh, there'll be one day where he wants other guests on. It's like, it's kind of just our show now, like all three of us, me, John, and Spin. So
awesome. Yep. You do good work. I appreciate
Thanks, man. You guys too.
Our friendship, and make sure everybody watching, like, subscribe, hit the bell. I'll throw up my, I don't know. Give us dollars when you see us.
Go buy shirts.
Yeah. Something we need. Got to keep the train running, All right. Thanks. Thanks, Jace. Yeah. I'm glad you feel a little more comfortable about what happened this weekend. It's good.